Well, hello, as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning. Actually, it is morning, Wednesday morning, January 18th, year 2023, here with the Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrah, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Show that's been on there since 1984, some even say 1980. 4 decades of solid publications and interviews and portrayal of a community. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and the likes of you out there that making it your business to engage, participate, and enhance and fortify the concept of public access. Here with us, Steve Romm. Steve, let me just adjust. Okay, 1 second.
Actually,
sorry.
today I'm Edward R. Morrow.
So this is Steve Romm. Steve Romm was he's really a part of the heritage of this show, showing up here dozens and dozens of times, and we're very happy to have him here. So let's keep it civil. Let's keep it quiet. I also wanted to mention that Steve is actually one of the participating artists in the group art show that we have up now, which will run through the second or maybe even the third week of February. So we'll give you more information about that later. So raving about your paintings, people are intrigued. People actually approached me about the large primitive painting that you had at the show that I put together at Ashra Hall. People take notice, and I told him, just imagine all this, and he's not even trying hard. He's just not doing much, and look what he's doing.
That's not an easy painting to miss. You know, I mean,
No.
That was a year of painting every single day, and the process was really simple.
Just watch the coffee.
Got up, had my breakfast, went into the studio, and I would look at the painting, and I would simply go, I can put more dots in. It was really that simple. And I would finish
like
painting.
me, but me is like, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. You knew.
And I'd finish with a whole row of flowers with dots in the middle, and I would go back the next day and look at it and go, looks empty. And I'm using a 000 brush, which you know what that's like. It's 3 hairs. You have to wet it with your mouth, which is great for putting Liquitex in your mouth all the time, and just go around and put more dots in and finish that up. And then the other area looked empty. So, and it's a big painting. This is not a 2 by 3 foot painting. It's, what is it, 6 by 8 or something like that. It's big.
Yeah.
So when you start thinking of
Yeah,
dots
6 by 7.
and how many dots there are, at some point you have to stop, or you go dot crazy. You know, you start seeing dots before your eyes where there aren't dots. But it was, I think, the last of the, and I call it primitive, but it's not primitive, because it's got layers to it and it's got depth to it.
It's the most sophisticated primitive I've ever seen in my life. The most modernistic, actually.
I mean, you know, it's got a waterfall, and people look at the waterfall and then they go, oh, there are fish leaping out of the waterfall. And then the water comes. I love the painting. I mean, that's why I put a price tag on it, that if somebody really wants a great painting, they have to pay for it.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Of course. But what I think that your ability and your paintings, they speak for someone who doesn't really have to bother himself with titles or technique or style. You have an attitude in place, and you're really very stubborn, devoted, consistent with your attitude, and therefore it doesn't matter what your style. I mean, you don't take time to discuss styles, and I like that about you. It's not what really governs your work or the direction. But will you share? I mean, is it fair to say that you would pretty much share the same kind of attitude and state of mind throughout all the styles and subject matters and all paintings that you paint? Period.
Yeah, I mean, the process, whether I do a surrealist painting, an abstract painting, what we call a primitive painting, the process is the same. It's just that the subject matter changes. the process of painting is still the same, no matter what. And there's a certain consistency, and on my part, I would consider it an obligation on my part to follow certain rules about how you paint.
Did you ever experience a scenario where you look at your brush and say, "Wow, a brush"?
I,
Does it?
it's really funny that you say that because there is a moment of absolute terror when the brush is in your hand and it has
And
paint
honest
on it,
also.
and you're a half an inch away from the painting, and the last thought you have before you actually start painting is, I'm not sure I know how to paint anymore. And I think
That's a good place to be, no?
it's a great place to be because it's a challenge. And then what happens is something snaps. As soon as the brush touches the canvas, it's like I leave the room. Physically leave the room.
But also overconfidence is a good thing, wouldn't you say?
I never
If
have
you know
a
how to
sense,
navigate
I
it.
never have a sense of overconfidence. What I have is a sense of security in knowing that I know how to do what I'm doing. How it turns out, I don't have, let's put it this way, I don't have fear of doing a bad painting because everybody does a bad painting. And what's the worst that happens? Paint over it.
It's almost impossible to define bad painting, therefore they don't exist.
Yeah,
I mean, it's cliche statement, but still, nevertheless, it holds water, no?
you know, it's like the last painting I did, the abstract that's out in the hall. That absolutely threw me because I had no idea what was going to come out of that. None whatsoever. I mean, I approached that with a totally different mental attitude, in the sense that, and you would understand more than anybody else, because I approached that with a sense of freedom,
But you
with
knew
no
enough not.
restrictions. No restrictions.
But you knew enough not to be too surprised about how things.
I knew this. I knew there was a certain structure to it, but within the boundaries of that structure, a lot of it was a surprise to me because I'd step back and look at it and I'd see something that wasn't there and I'd have to paint it. So that's how the painting developed. And to the last day, when I thought I was done, I left the studio and I said, I'm done with the painting. And I went back in the next day and I went, I'm not done with the
Yeah,
painting.
of course you're not done.
You know.
But the thing is, what structure is required in order to give the answers to abstract expressionism to thrive?
For me, it's the same thing as doing a primitive or a landscape, or
That's what I thought.
it doesn't make any difference.
But
There's a
still,
balance, there's a certain basis of color that has to all congeal. You can't have something that doesn't work with your color palette has to work together. There's a certain structure, there's a certain flow, all the same things that go into doing a landscape with the clouds or doing a primitive, so that when the water comes over the waterfall, it goes to the right place. And that structure is in everything you paint, no matter whether it's abstract or whatever it is.
well, what if the moment suggests and provides you with an outlet, a sudden outlet that wasn't there before, and you being the adventurous artist that you are, will be tempted to go there? I mean, do you find yourself, in order to, because with this painting, the abstract piece that you brought here, I noticed in more ways than one, vis-a-vis the way you taught me to look at the painting, by teaching me to look at my paintings. You taught me how to look at my paintings. But anyway, I looked at it and I said, you know what, there are many curveballs that the surface served him, and he handled it really, really well. You can see that.
Right.
You can see that no marks of hesitation, and if there are any marks of hesitation, then they're seamless. You know what I mean? And the end result shows and speaks for it.
There's it's interesting to say that because your paintings have it, that abstract has it. There's an obligation on the part of the viewer not to just stand in front of the painting for a minute or two, but to actually look at the painting and realize that's two paintings. There is a line that goes all the way through the painting that's barely visible, that separates it into two sections, both of which overlap. The colors overlap, but there is a division between the painting, which came at the end when I looked at it and I said, there's something missing from this. I have to divide this into sections and make the overall sections work together. The smaller sections work together. And then what I love to do, and I think you know it's consistent in every painting I do, there are layers and layers and layers. Like the big painting you saw in the studio, the one that's hanging on the wall. When you look at that, it's like I woke up at night and the view that I had, which I made a little drawing of, which was like the key to the car, okay? Everything in the car runs if you turn the key and get in. And I made a sketch, and the sketch was looking through the window, out through the other window, down into the street. That's all I needed. And the rest of the painting just came out of it. So there are so many layers in that what I did, and it's in a lot of the paintings, including the abstract here, is I'll use my little lines, my red lines, and they're like signposts. They're guides. It takes the viewer behind a wall and then brings them back out again. And then it takes them to another place so that they have to follow a certain, it's like a map.
Yeah.
And if they see that, they suddenly realize that this is not a flat painting. This is a dimensional painting with layers upon layers upon layers. And just when you think you're done and you've looked at all the layers, there's another layer.
There's another, of course, and another 5 layers. But do you give credit to the invisible creatures that reside within the painting itself? But at the end result, they're not. What's the word? Evident. Because I still remember we talked about it many times in the past. I still hear voices in the studio. I still.
You've always heard voices. That's why they lock you up every once in a while.
No,
and Jonathan Winters.
Only in the studio. And you know what? And it's also according to what stage I'm in, the body of work or a certain painting and all this. But it's amazing that I don't see traces of them. I don't see their presence, not even in a suggestive fashion when the painting is approaching completion or completed. And we know people are not aware how well we know about our paintings. We know a painting that we paint fairly well. I remember that when I did the underground recordings in Jerusalem, there was this sound man. There was a huge authority when it comes to sound and editing in Jerusalem. And he took us seriously, but he knew that we are like an outfit that's playing the spur of the moment. But he did something in the studio and said, stop, wait a second. You forgot about 3 minutes earlier here. There was a sequence that you cannot ignore. And he looked at me. And he knew what I was talking about. And he said, so you do know what's going on.
Right.
I said, you bet you sweet whatever. I know, of course I know. So I think since that encounter, I gained a little more influence and more, I wouldn't say respect, just more regard, he was paying attention. And so same with the paintings. We know, I don't think people know how much we know about our paintings, even if it's extremely, completely abstract expressionist.
It doesn't make any difference whether it's abstract, my early surrealist paintings, it's all this. It takes the same amount of energy and the same brain patterns and thoughts to do an abstract as it does a primitive. It doesn't make any difference what the subject is. If you're painting it, you have to paint. You got to use a brush and paint, and the end result is that no matter what the subject matter is, it's irrelevant. You're still using a certain process, and each artist has their own way of doing it. For me, I would describe it as once the brush hits the canvas, I can go on vacation. I mean, literally, because it's so built into me. I mean, the favorite shot that I have of all the photographs that I've had taken of me painting is the one that Lenore took when I had my cat Lily sitting on my shoulder
Yeah.
and her paw on my arm for 2 hours. And I could just feel her energy as a cat
Yeah.
flowing into my arm, into my hand.
No
and
wonder you're weird.
And I just kept painting. And I'm thinking, this cat knows a lot more than I do.
Oh, yeah, they sense, of course. Yeah, but
And now they're finding out. There was a whole program on last night that animals are learning to speak. They have artificial intelligence, and dogs and cats can push a button that has a word, and they can communicate. They're not
I'm sorry, I
stupid
just yawned on the
creatures.
air. Would you?
You know, someday you'll have a
Would you-
cat sitting here interviewing a cat, and it'll have buttons, and it'll go. It's the same thing that some people want to say, "Hey, Haim, leave me alone," you know, or whatever it is. I paint the way I want to paint, just because I use my paws, or whatever it is. I think the process is, and you have the same thing. When you start a painting, once you start it, you're committed to it, and you make mistakes while you're doing it, but you can paint over it. You can redo it. That's the beauty of painting, is that you're not obligated to stick with what you think is the finished thing. If you don't like it, take out more paint and redo it. And it's a struggle at times. You get bogged down at times, but you know, it's like when I did one painting, I used to walk into the studio and look at the painting and say, "You're not going to win.
Yeah.
This is my painting.
Yeah.
You're painting. You don't have control of this."
I can relate to what you're saying now.
You
But you
know?
think the great painters of the era, you know.
I think everybody's
But
done
what I
that.
mean, but I think, you know, I'd like to kind of relate to. I don't have to know much about artists that I admire, other than what I admire them for. You know, I see the paintings, I can relate to it. I know it's something I couldn't do. And then I'm being humbled and educated at the same time. But also, I like to hassle myself and to occupy myself thinking, does it mean for these people to think, wake up in the morning and say, well, if they're not already in their studio because they went to sleep in their studio, then they would, God forbid, would have to kind of take 20 steps to go to the studio and turn the heat on or whatever. But what is it by way of the aspect of them waking up in the morning and literally walking physically to the studio and entering? So what are they expecting? A situation, a scenario where it will allow them to start working immediately if they chose to, or do they have a lot of preparations? What kind of an artist, technically speaking, were they?
For me, there's no preparation. I just walk into the studio.
But you know what I mean. Like I would be able to understand and to learn more from a painter if I knew that about him. If I knew that for example, he was always, no matter at what stage he was, before he leaves the studio, he leaves everything so it's compatible with him being able to start immediately if he chose to. No preparations, no nothing. It's all ready to go.
Right.
Or maybe just he was the kind of painter that would paint and he leaves it exactly where it is and won't even clean the brush, leave it right there and leave. It makes a difference in how we benefit and learn from the masters, by way of learning of how they handle themselves physically in their studios. What did the studio mean to them?
See, to me, I'm not impressed by somebody's studio. Okay, I've been into studios where the first thing somebody says, they don't talk about their paintings. They go, "Look at my gorgeous studio." Well, the studio's not doing the painting, and I'm not impressed.
But we're not talking about these people. I mean, obviously, if you go to, if you would have gone to see Picasso and he would let you in, he would never tell you, "Come to my beautiful studio."
It's irrelevant.
But you wouldn't expect him to do that, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't
But
expect
wouldn't
it
you
all.
wanna-
It's a space.
Wouldn't you feel very special, that the moment is very special being with such a master in his studio, even if he won't say a word.
You know,
Just watching him.
You used the word master, and the question is that comes up all the time. Having seen the Magritte show in the city, and Magritte's reproductions of Magritte's paintings are so much better looking than his actual paintings. It's almost as if
Yeah, but it's not fair because the technology allows you to clean it up and to enhance it, and
exactly.
but then it's not a Magritte anymore.
But now there was a program on TV the other night which was really fascinating, because now artificial intelligence and 3D printers are doing paintings. And I didn't know, I was looking at these abstracts, and I said to Lenore, I said, these are incredible. These are absolutely fascinating paintings. I don't know who's doing the abstracts, but man, have they got it down. And then I watched the show, and the show was, these weren't done by anybody. These were done by taking you and I sitting here, got the computer over there, and we go, okay, I want you to put in these are the colors I want you to use, and I need flowing movements, and I want it to have a sort of a feeling of a waterfall. You put in certain parameters, and the computer now has access to every painting and photograph in the world that it can take pieces from and put together. So there's already a lawsuit out against the company that made the 3D printer that's making the paintings. What they pointed out was painters at one time, when photography came out, went berserk that somebody could do a landscape without painting. They could simply take a box with a lens and do a beautiful landscape. And then it became a color landscape.
Artificial intelligence painting.
Okay. And I've seen some beautiful ones.
Look.
But the question is, yeah.
Insane. But that's what happened when they developed the Deep Blue, and chess players were like completely terrified from the possibility that they would have to sit and play against.
There are going to be a lot of artists.
But a lot of grandmasters, they beat the Deep Blue.
Well, that's the interesting thing. There's something at the end of the program, after having shown all these paintings, and they sold a painting that was done by a computer for $400,000. And they said, yeah. And they fed information into it. They wanted a Renaissance feel. They wanted they gave it certain parameters. And the computer did a beautiful painting. And it sold at, I don't know what gallery, for $400,000. Now the question is, are we going to accept right now, really quickly, the fact that a computer with AI can do a better painting than a human being can do? But what's missing from that painting? When I saw the painting that sold for $400,000, what was missing from it was soul. The machine is not a human being.
Yeah, but you need to be able to work the machine in order to get these results. The AI will not do the job itself. It needs feeding.
It needs information fed into
Exactly. Okay. You know how tough that is? You might as well say you can become a great painter if you were to pay attention to painting paintings yourself. But it takes the same level of expertise to handle the computer and the software for that to take place.
I think at some point there will be a blend of human and artificial intelligence.
That's already taking place for the longest time.
Artists are starting to use a computer to do certain things. I'm not sure that, the concern is at what point does AI does it not need human information? Does it not need us to tell it what to do?
But nothing can stop us from doing it, though.
That's the problem.
That's the good thing. Nothing can stop human beings from painting.
Nothing can stop human beings from painting.
And nothing won't.
But what happens when AI starts turning out artwork in any shape or form, sculpture, paintings, whatever it is, that's superior to what a human being is capable of doing.
But what happens if those experts, the few to handle the feeding of the computer, will refuse to do it any longer?
I think the computer would do it on its own.
I don't know.
That's what I think. I mean, I think that, painting a straight line it sounds really simple, but if you took that painting and you wanted to paint an absolutely straight line across it, you probably use tape because it's the only way you can get an edge that's really clean. But artificial intelligence doesn't need the tape. It can paint that straight line without the tape in any color, shape, or form.
But how should we be deterred by this knowledge?
I don't think we should be deterred.
Well, how is it possible for us to be deterred? I mean, so
I think
it's a no-brainer. Of course, the machine will do it better and faster without all the preparations that we need. But that's old news. We know that already. So, but what is it telling us? That we should
it's telling us that
maybe consider not to do it any longer? Or
no, I think if you're smart, you take the intelligence of that machine and you use it to your advantage and you incorporate it into what you're doing so that it's both machine and human, the human overriding the machine, so it's got your soul, your thoughts, your feelings in it, and the machine simply execute those thoughts, but it's you that's doing it. What it does, to sum it up, it replaces the paintbrush. That's all. It's nothing more than replacing the paintbrush. And if you do it that way, and you don't give it the power to be creative and do it on its own, so that you're in competition with AI, let it be the tool that you use. It's like, I don't do what I used to do. I don't use the rabbit skin glue anymore. I don't use linen. I don't use white lead paint. I mean, all of those things that I learned to use, I don't need to do that anymore. So I can get a really good canvas. I can stretch a really good canvas. It makes it a lot easier for me. So I could use artificial intelligence to stretch the canvas for me, do all of that, and then use it as part of, as I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure I'm willing to turn over to anything, another person or a machine, what I can do on the canvas, because it's not going to be me.
yes, and I don't think, and you know what, we will be long gone before this will be even a beginning of an issue. The thing is that, we like to smell, and we like to sense, to feel, we like to have that kind of interaction, the visual interaction. All these basic things are extremely important. And in what we choose, and the thing is that when we as artists, we choose to become artists, knowing that it's difficult, knowing that we might not earn a living, knowing that we might not be considered as anything worthwhile for anyone to invest or buy, but we're still doing it, and we're doing it, we continue to do it. I think that the computer itself and this program itself should be impressed by us and by our levels, of resilience and maybe...
It's not a chess game, because a chess game is finite in that there are rules to a chess game, and there are only certain moves that you can make.
Yeah, but there's brilliance that extends beyond the rules. You forget about rules once you get the checkmate from someone that...
But a canvas, when you're painting, the only limitation you have is the size of the canvas. You can put anything you want on that canvas. So if you're painting and you decide to change something, I'm not sure that artificial intelligence is capable of going halfway through the painting and then thinking to itself, I don't like that, I'm going to change it, unless it's fed that information from a human being.
I'd like to see the one who programmed this, who created this program, and actually...
That's the key word, program.
Yes, and actually see his real paintings that he himself painted.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I want to see.
I'll
be very impressed.
Not necessarily. I was in a studio of an artist who, for a very short period of time in his life, was all over the papers. They thought he was the next Andy Warhol. I went up to his studio. Guy had a major attitude. Thought he was absolutely God's greatest gift to the world. And I looked at the studio, and he had 40 people, 40 women sitting around on the floor doing the paintings. And he would walk around, and he'd say blue or whatever it was, but he never touched a painting.
But he made it happen. That's his art. He orchestrated it. How would it happen if he wasn't in charge and planning and put it in place? No, it wouldn't.
I agree with that, but there's.
You didn't think about that. You didn't bring the 40 women to do what they're doing for him. He and the blue and the yellow and the brown and the black that you will see, it's his direct instructions. He brought it to life in the way that you're experiencing it. I think that's where his credit is.
I'm not so sure. I mean, when I'm doing a painting, I have to have
Maybe
control.
you're upset because you weren't the one who discovered it first.
But you know what happened? It died. Because people came to the realization when they found out how the paintings were done that he wasn't doing the paintings. They had nothing to do with him at all. He didn't tell the people, put blue over here or brown over here. They were basically doing the paintings on their own. These women were doing the paintings on their own. And he might give them a theme, and it's like the painting behind you. If I gave 40 people that painting, and I said, I want 40 different paintings with a different palette, but this is the basic concept I want all the paintings to look like, that's what you end up with. And he goes around the room and he might say, too much blue, change it. That's it.
That's crucial.
Okay.
That's crucial.
But there's
it's crucial. You know better than me it's crucial.
There's no mark of him in the paintings.
How many times did you suggest it to me? If you move that line to the left and add a new line here, actually horizontal, the whole painting, the painting is great, but it will be greater than great. How many times you suggested that one little tiny change will make the painting?
But you're the one that does it.
So when you say, yeah, it doesn't matter, but then if I hire someone, let's just say that I have arthritis, terrible arthritis, I can't even hold a brush. So I'm calling someone to put together the collage that I have in my mind, you know?
Right.
I think it's legitimate.
Well, it's like Erte. I mean, Erte was, all these Erte sculptures that were at Dianson Gallery, when he was in his 90s and has this fine little filigree detail on it, he had palsy. He couldn't do the sculptures. They were being done by somebody at the foundry. Who was
with
doing
his
the
instructions,
sculptures.
with his vision, with his guidance, with his mentoring. I mean, come on.
It was...
It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for him.
But he wasn't even there. It was the studio that,
You're missing the point, I think.
Look, if you said to me, I have to get 4 paintings out for a show in a month, and I broke my arm. Can you do me a favor? Can you do 4 paintings for me? Okay. You might figure out who's best amongst all the people you know that could do 4 paintings that's going to look like they're your paintings. And that's the important thing. So you can't paint it, so you're turning to somebody else, not artificial intelligence, but another painter who can turn out 4 paintings that are basically indistinguishable from what you can do. Okay? And I think there's a substitute validity to that because you have an obligation to turn out something. You have somebody doing it for you under your instructions, under your guidance, under your direction. So they, in essence, have become the brush, where artificial intelligence as the brush has different parameters that are so far superior to what a human being can do. And I think...
But that's what is expected of us, and that's what we're asked to do. They said, here's a new approach, here's new technology. What are you going to do with it? This is what you can do with it. First of all, are you going to do something with it is it going to be a part of your arsenal of tools and weapons, so to speak, and how much you're going to take advantage of it? It's all up to you, but informing you that this technology
My
is
answer,
available. Now the thing is, so at that moment you're actually telling everyone that they're highly advised and encouraged to use it because it was created for that
I
purpose.
would agree with you simply because the proof is that a photographer, good, bad, or indifferent, or a master, takes a photograph, puts it into the computer, looks at it, and says, I don't like that branch there. And they take it out. They use Photoshop.
What
They
about
just take it
cleaning
out.
up? What about cleaning up? Cleaning up is criminal if
You
you think
know,
about it.
I
Don't you
mean,
think?
there's a commercial on TV now where the phone, if you have a crowd of 6 people and you only want 2, it'll take the other 4 people out and substitute the background right into it in the phone.
Yeah, but let's go back to painting. So you say, if you say that, you took a shot that was skilled because the composition came out the way you wanted to come out, but then the quality was suffering because of whatever. Maybe you didn't prepare well enough. So you put it on Photoshop and then you clean it up and you get exactly an exquisite reality where it's exactly clean cut, sharp, balanced, the colors you wanted, the contradiction and the opposites and everything is there residing as you envisioned it and all that. So you can say, well, this is not the shot you took.
Right.
This is the shot that you took post-production, heavily post-production.
Right.
And you know what? It's just as much as I would give you a credit for the fact of you grabbing the phone and making it your business to take the shot, I'll give you also credit that you had the ability and the sense to do post-production and to clean it up in such a capable, professional way. I mean, I can give credit instead of accusing someone, but you did it with your computer,
Yeah,
But it takes knowledge, no?
I don't think I know a single photographer who's still doing prints, actual prints. There may be a few around who are developing their prints in a darkroom. Everybody's doing digital prints because they are so good. They're basically indistinguishable. I mean, in the beginning, there were flaws to the process. There's no longer any flaws. It's almost indistinguishable to tell the difference between a photograph and a digital print, except that the digital print gives you the ability to take the plane out of the sky that shouldn't be there because you want something ethereal. You don't want a 747 flying through your ethereal painting. It's not an angel. So you take it out. Boom, gone. Okay, so we've absorbed Photoshop and all of the machinations of Photoshop to create a photograph that suits our needs. I think we'll probably use artificial intelligence the same way.
Yeah, but
hopefully the artist remains in control and doesn't say, it's just as easy for me to tell the artificial intelligence computer what I want, go inside and have lunch, and come back in and I have 20 paintings on the desk. And I look at them and I go, I like that one, I'll sign it, and that's mine.
Okay, so the decision-making process is one and the same throughout whichever medium, whichever engagement. You have to make decisions. So that process of making decisions is the credit is upon that you will get your credit upon your ability to make decisions.
What happens? I remember freshman year in college in basic painting. The first thing we were told is don't strive to paint your masterpiece because once you paint your masterpiece, there's no place to go.
Well, as if you can, and listen.
Know,
if I felt like I can do it, I'm not going to delay it. I'll do it immediately, and then I'll do another one. I don't know.
But as a freshman, just learning painting, you look at your earlier paintings, and there was a certain beauty and naivete to it. And as you went through year after year after year, and then you left college and you went did more and more paintings, your paintings progressed into a whole different level. You get to a certain point where it's conceivable and hopefully possible that you reach a point where you do a painting and you look at it, and if you're really honest with yourself, you go, you know what? That's the best I'm ever going to do. And at that point, you stop because you've reached. When I looked at the abstract, and I have another one to do, and it took me I have to see the painting in my head, or I can't paint it. I have to know what it looks like, and I couldn't get it where I wanted it. It was like floating around in my brain, constantly changing. None of it was satisfactory. Got up one day, saw the painting. Now I know what it looks like. I put the canvas on the wall. I have to get my medium, and I'm ready to paint. And I know what the painting looks like, and it goes with this. So I'm ready to do a second painting that's of the same or better quality than that. I'm not ready to give up and say that's my masterpiece, because I think I can still do much better.
You can say it's a masterpiece, but not my or the.
It's not the ultimate painting.
Yeah. But yeah, that's. I forgot. I wanted to ask you about when it doesn't matter how many decisions you're going to have to make. It doesn't matter upon which magnitude or what kind of, but you're going to have to make decisions.
Every brushstroke's a decision.
Yes. So now the appreciation that you will be given is according to, listen, you made a smart decision at this crossroads. And when it comes to a painting, you can identify that crossroad. You crossed it amicably and elegantly and whatever, and then you can see what followed. On the account of that crucial decision that you took it upon yourself to make that decision, things happen. There's a result. There's an opening. There's an exhibition. There's spectators like me. There's something to show for. There's something that you will be asked about. There's explanations that you will offer or not. But you know what I mean? The whole entire world evolves and revolves around your decision-making process. So it doesn't matter how many decisions, doesn't matter what style, what is. We all share the same kind of necessity to. You go to the studio, you think everything is going to be there ready for you. You won't even have to wonder about anything, or second guess yourself, or not be sure about certain things, and then to find yourself that you actually have to make decisions. There's no situation or scenario where decisions are not needed to be made. Otherwise this whole vehicle you won't have to worry about this machine, and you wouldn't have to worry about transportation from point A to point B.
My initial reaction to artificial intelligence doing these beautiful abstracts is, yeah, they're beautiful abstracts, but at some point people are going to look at them and say, they're beautiful abstracts, but they're lacking the flaws and the humanity that an artist does. There's something not, quite right. It's missing soul. And that's what they were talking about. And they were talking about the fact that when photography came out and the painters went berserk and said, this is not right. You have to paint a landscape. You can't just photograph a landscape. It's cheating. And then eventually photography took hold, and you had Ansel Adams doing landscapes that nobody else could do, and you had other photographers doing things that nobody else could do, and they became masters in their own field, and photography was accepted. So now you have digital photography, and you have cameras that do incredible things, and yes, you can manipulate the photograph, and you can change things around, but the end result is the photographer did it. camera didn't do it, the computer didn't do it. It had to be fed the instructions from the photographer. The real question is, at what point, and that's what people are concerned about, does the artist, photographer, painter, sculptor, whatever it is, at what point are they no longer needed in the process of creating the artwork? And I think that's the concern that people have.
I mean, I can
It's
see
like
it.
turning out cars.
Yeah, but I can see it maybe deterring 1% of the potential artistic population
I hope
from.
in the end it's used as a part of the process.
But that's for the
creating.
artist to make that decision and to
Right.
create that awareness. Really is.
But you and I know that there are artists that are going to take it.
Yeah, but maybe you and I would make exactly the opposite decision. We wouldn't want to be
I may not
having anything to do with it and continue.
Right.
I think the
taking.
greatest thing is to try and tackle the issue by trying to just continue doing what we're doing.
I mean,
Nothing wrong with what we're
can't
doing.
tell
It's
what's gonna
powerful. It's beautiful. It's classic. It's clean cut. It's clear. It's creative. It's inventive. I mean, why do we want to change? If any change, it should be changed within the process of work itself,
Look,
so you can break through.
I know people that used to do book covers, and they're out of work because now they have computers that do the book cover in 5 minutes, and they don't need an artist to paint the romance novels or whatever the book cover was and get paid $10,000 for a book cover when all the information's in the computer and they can say, okay, I want a sexy woman with a really handsome, muscular guy, and I want him holding the woman, and there's rapids, and they feed the information into the computer prints it out, half an hour later they have the cover done. And they don't have to pay anybody to do it, and they don't have to wait weeks to get a painting back. So that whole industry has changed. The whole industry, in the early days when I was doing photography, if there was a spot on the film, there wasn't a computer to take the spot out. I had to take it to a guy.
Yes, and knowing you probably lost your mind from all these spots. They would drove you crazy.
And it would cost a fortune
Yes.
because here's a guy whose training
Yes.
goes way back on how to retouch
Yes.
film,
Yes.
you know, and to do it so that when you made a print, it
Can you
didn't
believe
show
that
up.
one day it was a big deal?
And all of a sudden, they're all gone. The computer came out, and you stand there, you sit there, and you look at it, and you go, oh, there's a dot there. Hit the key, dot's gone. You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it changed everything.
So, if we're speaking of change and technology and advancing with the technology forward, when it comes to brushes and paint and surface, do you expect anything to change in the next 50 years other than the fact that the paint will be just slightly better? And with brushes, we were already proven that they're eternal. Certain brushes are just eternal. They'll always be used, always be appreciated. And of course, some other forms of application, spatula knives and sticks and whatever, basic things that even a kid would know. And instinctively, you don't need a crash course even. You would know what to do.
I can't answer it for the simple reason that if you take movies, there was a time where a director, a producer, actors and actresses had a camera, they had a set, they had a script, and they shot the movie. And when they were done, they edited out certain frames, they edited it out, and that was the movie. Now, they create artificial backgrounds, artificial people, artificial
But
everything.
it's still a background.
But
It's still people. It's still items. It's still, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
but now it's not being done by people
but
anymore.
why should we be worried about it? I don't remember when was the last time when I looked and said, this background looks like a computer did it, whatever. Or a program.
People get a thrill out of watching, what was the Tom Cruise movie that just came out?
Top Gun.
Top Gun.
I loved
Most
it.
of that was all artificially
Of course,
done.
of course,
You
of
can't
course.
get those shots.
I watched this movie, by the way,
You know.
and absolutely struck from all directions. First of all, because I was paying attention to his acting. His acting is impeccable.
Yeah.
Enjoyable, appreciated so much. I couldn't even see the stunts and all that. It was like, it was acted so immaculately well that I enjoyed the movie making itself, the script, something like that. So, wait, first of all, let me just mention, because we're almost done. We got about maybe 5 to 10 minutes. January 18th, year 2023, on a Wednesday morning here with Steve Romm with the Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrah. Just to remind you that actually, as we speak, there is an ongoing group art show with the likes of Steve Romm, Dalton Portela, Casey Anderson, Josephine Wustasiak, and Esli Escobar, and who else? And myself, your humble service, Haim Mizrah. But we continue to do things in the group arches that we've been doing for the last 25 years, since the early days of Sabina, and so we're glad to kind of open back and to serve the public directly and indirectly. And if you think you want a show, you can always contact me, and we can see what we can do for you. But definitely the concept of public access in LTV and the availability of it to all people is a given. So you don't have to second guess or have any second thoughts. So I want to just conclude. First of all, I really appreciate you here with us, and I really appreciated your sense of importance of the fact that to be here is important.
Mike, you know how much I enjoy this show.
Yeah, of course. And then you show off.
Until I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I see myself on TV, I go, good God, turn off that station.
It looked a little better earlier today. I don't know why the screen said that it looks better. But
you need to get a filter. I need that, when I used to do...
I don't envy the camera with the filter.
I used to do wedding photography. That's how I got started in photography. And 99% of the time, the brides were just... It was like Godzilla versus... it was just horrible.
Versus another Godzilla.
So you'd put the bride really behind a velvet curtain, hopefully that nothing of their face would show through. Or you had Vaseline on the lens. I mean, there are all kinds of tricks. So the idea is that as we age, we need gauze coming down so that everybody looks softer and younger.
Okay, let me break the news to you. You need a miracle. But that's what you need.
I get up in the morning, I'm going to start taking mirrors out of
You probably faint twice before you manage to wake up without, encountering how you look. When you take one look at your foot and you faint.
The only thing I can say is it's just going to happen to everybody. So it's a matter of time.
I don't know what about happening. People nowadays, they pass away when they're 40.
I know.
So no guarantee about anything. You have to live in good faith. You have to love yourself. You have to love the other. You have to treat yourself and be kind to yourself as much as to others. You have to work hard. And if you're privileged enough and lucky enough to have a family, a large family for that sake, then even better, even more so. So you live your life, and then you kind of get old if you're lucky, and then you kind of die, but then you have a minute to look back and you say, "Wow, look at these beautiful children of mine." And the wife that I thought that I don't like or resent, I actually am in love with her after all these years. People will say these things.
Right.
But we gotta just educate ourselves to take it easy, not to take ourselves seriously, not to dwell. Dwelling is number one enemy, especially of artists, by the way. But so just I'll give you the last word and just walk me through this.
Get up in the morning.
No, but tell people what we mean.
Or the afternoon.
What is it? What point of reference does it relate to?
You know what? At a certain point, stop taking yourself so seriously and go into your studio when you're ready and paint.
Yes.
And just forget all the rules, forget all the regulations, all of your own rules. Stick your thumb up in front of the canvas and go, you know what? I think I'll paint my thumb.
That's again,
I'll
and
do a
you know, pay
giant
attention to
painting
the
of my
shadow
thumb,
that it creates on the
you know.
surface and follow the guideline.
And don't take yourself so seriously.
No, by no means. So I want to also, you know, as we kind of breaking into 2023, and then our friendship is entering its miserable third decade.
We're scared of each other.
Miserable third decade, man. I met you when you made sense. If, by the way you looked, by the way you sounded, you looked healthy and good to go.
All the opposite of
But
everything
you know what?
now.
I want to wish you, because I know you celebrated your 80th, which is incredible, many more years of health.
Yeah, people
and
keep reminding me of it. I don't want to know.
emotional balance and spiritual decency, and because you're a good person and you deserve to live these years in peace with yourself and with your wonderful wife and with your capabilities. Listen, don't give up. I would love to find out that this year of 2023, you will make it your business to pick up the brush more often than not. And you know what? For that sake, just like my Tai Chi teacher told me, every time I told him I don't have time to practice, he said, don't give me that. I'll show you a way where you don't even need more than 20 seconds.
Right.
So no more excuses. So even if you, for God's sake, take that paint and buy the cheapest paint and just like go with your hands and just put it on the canvas and leave it alone, come back a day later and then sign it and be happy. It doesn't matter what you'll do, it will be incredible. And let me just mention again, we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we're here this morning, the morning of Wednesday, January 18th, year 2023. And thank you to my guest, Steve Romm. And I know that we're going to cross paths and you're going to come here more often than not in the future. And we're looking forward to that. And how about I give you the last word?
All I can say is I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, to be able to speak my mind, not have limitations. There are a few things I won't say, but
yeah, we'll leave it for next one. When
we'll leave it for the last show when we really let it go.
I hope that before that. Anyway, thank you again, Steve, and keep up the good spirits. We'll see you soon, and I will inform you of the official date for the opening of the reception of the group outro that we have here.
Very good. Thank you.